If you are watching this video right now, I need you to stop whatever you are doing and pay very close attention, because what I am about to share with you in the next few minutes could be the difference between you getting your Australian permanent residency approved or watching your dream get crushed by a rejection letter that you never saw coming. I am not exaggerating. I am not here to scare you for no reason. What I am about to tell you is based on real, current, 2026 information straight from the Department of Home Affairs. And the truth is, thousands of skilled, qualified, hardworking people just like you are getting rejected every single year in Australia. Not because they are not good enough, but because they are making four very specific, very avoidable mistakes. And here is what is even more alarming. Most of these people had no idea they were making these mistakes. They spent months, sometimes years, preparing their applications. They paid thousands of dollars in visa fees, skills assessments, and English test preparation. And then one day, they opened their email and saw those three words that nobody wants to see: application not approved. So today, I am going to walk you through exactly what those four mistakes are, why they are happening more in 2026 than ever before, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to make sure your application does not end up in the rejection pile. But before I do that, I want to ask you something. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, please do it right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because every single week, we are bringing you the most up-to-date information on Australian immigration, the kind of information that migration agents charge you hundreds of dollars to tell you. We are giving it to you here for free, so make sure you do not miss a single video. Now let us get into it. To understand why these four mistakes are so dangerous in 2026 specifically, you first need to understand the landscape of Australian immigration right now. And I promise you, the situation is more intense than most people realize. The Australian government has set the permanent migration program cap at 185,000 places for the 2025 to 2026 financial year. That sounds like a lot of spots, right? But here is the part that most people do not talk about. Over 70% of those places, roughly 132,000 seats, are dedicated entirely to the skilled stream. And competition for those places has never been higher in Australia's history. Think about that for a second. People from all over the world, India, the Philippines, the United Kingdom, China, Nepal, Pakistan, South Africa, Sri Lanka, all of them are competing for the same limited number of spots. And at the same time, the Department of Home Affairs has signaled that a major overhaul to the entire points test system could be coming as early as July 2026. The Grattan Institute, one of Australia's most influential economic think tanks, has already put forward a detailed proposal to redesign the entire scoring framework, and the government has been listening. What this means is that the rules of the game are changing. And if you are still playing by the old rules, if you are still using outdated information, if you are still making the same mistakes that people were making 2 or 3 years ago, you are not just reducing your chances of success. You are setting yourself up for rejection in a system that is becoming less forgiving by the day. So let us talk about the four mistakes. And I want you to be honest with yourself as you listen to each one, because there is a good chance that you are already making at least one of them right now. The first mistake is one of the most common and one of the most devastating. It is something that sounds so simple that most people assume they are already doing it correctly. And that assumption, that quiet confidence that everything is fine, is exactly what gets people rejected. The mistake is this: submitting incomplete, inconsistent, or inaccurate documentation. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, I know about documents. I have been gathering my documents for months. I have my passport, my degree, my employment letters, everything. And I believe you. But here is what most people do not realize. Documentation errors are not always about missing papers. Sometimes, the most dangerous documentation mistakes are the ones that are almost invisible, tiny inconsistencies that you would never even notice unless you knew exactly what the Department of Home Affairs is looking for. Let me give you a real-life scenario. Imagine a software engineer, let's call him Rajan, who spent 8 months preparing his skilled independent visa application for Australia. He had everything: his degree certificates, his employment letters from 4 different companies, his IELTS scores, his skills assessment from the Australian Computer Society. He was confident. His migration agent reviewed everything. And yet, when the decision came back, it was a refusal. Why? Because in one of his employment reference letters, The job title listed was software developer, but in his skills assessment from the ACS, his occupation was listed as ICT business analyst. Those two things did not match. And when the case officer compared his documents, that inconsistency raised a red flag. The officer could not verify that Rajan's claimed work experience was genuinely in his nominated occupation. And in Australian immigration law, even the smallest discrepancy can and will be used to justify a refusal. This is not a rare case. According to the Department of Home Affairs, incomplete or inaccurate documentation is consistently one of the top reasons for Australian PR application rejections. And in 2026, with AI-driven triaging now being used to process applications, these inconsistencies are being spotted faster than ever before. Yes, you heard that right. The Department of Home Affairs has now integrated AI-driven systems to review and triage applications. Your documents are being cross-checked against each other automatically before a human case officer even looks at your file. So what do? First, go through every single document in your application and check that all job titles, dates, company names, and qualifications are consistent across all documents. Your employment reference letter must match your skills assessment. Your resume must match your reference letters. Your degree must match the qualifications claimed in your expression of interest. Every single detail must tell the same story. Second, do not assume that your employer's HR department knows how to write an immigration standard reference letter. Most of them do not. A valid employment reference letter for an Australian PR application must include your full name, your position title, your start and end dates, the number of hours you worked per week, and a description of your specific duties that aligns with the ANZ code for your nominated occupation. If your letter is missing any of these details, your work experience claims can be rejected outright. And third, pay special attention to your health and character documentation. Both your medical examination and your police clearance certificates have expiry dates. A medical exam conducted by a panel physician is typically valid for 12 months. If your application takes longer to process than expected and your medical expires before a decision is made, you may be required to undergo the entire examination again. And if a case officer requests updated medicals and you miss the deadline to respond, your application can be refused. The message here is simple. Do not take documentation for granted. Check everything twice, then check it again. Now let us move on to mistake number 2. And this one is particularly relevant right now, in 2026, because of the changes that are happening to Australia's immigration system as we speak. Mistake number 2 is miscalculating your points or underestimating how competitive the invitation rounds have become. Here's the thing. Most people who have been researching Australian PR know that the minimum threshold to lodge an expression of interest is 65 points. They see that number, they calculate their points, they reach 65 or maybe 70, and they think, I qualify, I should be fine. And that belief that meeting the minimum means you are competitive, is quietly destroying people's chances. Let me give you the real picture. In 2026, the minimum 65-point threshold is basically irrelevant for most applicants. That number is the floor, not the ceiling. And for the skilled independent visa, the subclass 189, the visa that thousands of people are targeting because it does not require state nomination, the competition is so fierce that you effectively need to be scoring 85 to 100 or more points to receive an invitation in most occupation categories. Some occupations have not been inviting applicants at 65 or even 75 points in years. And it gets even more intense. The Department of Home Affairs is currently reviewing proposals that could raise the minimum lodgement threshold from 65 points to 70 points from as early as July 2026. If that happens, tens of thousands of active expressions of interest that are currently sitting in the skill select pool will simply fall below the new minimum. Those people will lose their invitation eligibility overnight. Now, I want to be clear about something. As of the time I am recording this video, the government has not officially confirmed these changes. No legislation has been passed, but the direction is unmistakable. Australia's migration system is shifting toward a model that rewards younger applicants, higher English scores, Australian work experience, and in some proposals, even high Australian salaries. The Grattan Institute's proposals suggest that earning above the specialist skills income threshold, which is currently set at $141,210 per year, could actually earn you additional points under the new framework. So here is what this means for you practically. If you have been sitting on your expression of interest waiting for an invitation, you cannot afford to just wait and hope anymore. You need to actively look for ways to increase your points score right now before any potential rule changes take effect. How do you do that? Several ways. First, if your IELTS or PTE scores are at the competent English level, which earns you 0 bonus points, investing in retaking the test to achieve proficient or superior English could add 10 or even 20 points to your score. Those 20 points could be the difference between waiting years for an invitation and receiving one in the next invitation round. Second, look seriously at the subclass 190 or the subclass 491 pathways. State nomination adds either 5 or 15 extra points to your score, and in a competitive pool, those extra points matter enormously. The 491 visa, which is the skilled work regional visa, gives you 15 bonus points and provides a clear pathway to permanent residency after 3 years in a regional area. For people in competitive fields like IT, marketing, or finance, this regional pathway could be your fastest route to PR. Third, if you have an eligible partner, and by eligible I mean a partner who is under 45 years old, has competent English, and has had their skills assessed in a relevant occupation, make sure you are claiming your partner points. Many applicants either forget to claim these points or do not realize their partner qualifies. That is a free 10 points sitting on the table that you are not picking up. And fourth, and this is critical, make absolutely sure your work experience calculation is correct. This is where so many people make a silent, costly mistake. You can only claim work experience that is directly relevant to your nominated occupation as defined by the ANZ code. Work experience in unrelated roles cannot be counted, and many applicants inflate their experience by including part-time hours, freelance work without proper documentation, or roles that only partially overlap with their nominated occupation. If your claimed experience cannot be verified and substantiated, it will not be accepted, and in some cases, overclaiming work experience can trigger a fraud investigation. Before I get to mistake number 3, I want to quickly ask you something. How many of you watching right now have been sitting on your expression of interest for more than 6 months without receiving an invitation? Drop a comment below right now and let me know, because I want to understand how many of you this is affecting, and in a future video, we are going to look at specific strategies for people who have been waiting too long and need to reset their approach. So comment below, just write, waiting, and let me know how long you have been in the skill select pool. All right, let us talk about mistake number 3. And this one is particularly dangerous because most people do not discover they have made it until it is too late to fix. Mistake number 3 is choosing the wrong occupation or using an incorrect ENZ code. Australia's skilled migration system is built around the concept of nominated occupations. When you lodge an expression of interest or submit a visa application, you are not just applying as a skilled professional in a general sense. You are applying specifically as someone whose skills and experience match a defined occupation under Australia's National Occupational Classification System, the NZSCO. And the occupation you nominate, that single job title and code, determines everything. It determines which visa subclasses you are eligible for, which skilled occupation list you need to be on, which assessing authority evaluates your skills, and how your work experience is counted. And here's where the mistake happens. Many applicants choose their ANZ code based on a job title that sounds like their job, rather than on a careful reading of the actual tasks and duties defined under that code. And when the skills assessing authority compares their actual work history to the required duties of that occupation, the match falls short. The skills assessment gets refused. The visa application follows. Let me give you an example. Say you are an IT professional who has worked in a role that involved both software development and business analysis. You might think you could choose either software engineer or ICT business analyst as your nominated occupation, based on whichever sounds closest to your job title. But the skills assessing authority, in this case the ACS, the Australian Computer Society, will look at your actual day-to-day duties, the evidence you provide, and match them against the specific ANZ requirements for that occupation. If 60% of your work was software development and 40% was business analysis, you should be nominating under software engineering. If you nominate under ICT business analyst, the assessor may find that your evidence does not demonstrate sufficient depth in the analytical and business-facing aspects of the role, and your assessment will be refused. And the consequences go beyond just a delayed application. A refused skills assessment from the ACS or from TRA, Engineers Australia, HPRA, Vetesis, or any other assessing authority is a matter of record. It can affect your future applications. And if the same occupation is later assessed as ineligible for your visa subclass, you may need to start the entire process from scratch with a different occupation, which means a new skills assessment, new fees, and potentially different English test requirements. There is also an equally dangerous version of this mistake that has been growing in 2026, and that is the failure to cross-check your nominated occupation against the correct occupation list for your chosen visa pathway. As we discussed, Australia's skilled migration system has multiple occupation lists. The Medium and Long-Term Strategic Skills List, or MLTSSL, is required for the subclass 189 Skilled Independent Visa. The Short-Term Skilled Occupation List, or STSL, covers different occupations. State nomination under the subclass 190 and 491 visas requires your occupation to appear on that specific state's occupation list, and these state lists are updated frequently. What this means is that even if your occupation was on a state's nomination list 6 months ago when you started preparing your application, it may have been removed by the time you actually lodge. States like New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, and Western Australia all manage their own migration programs independently, and they open and close occupation categories based on their local labor market needs. Right now in 2026, healthcare, education, trades, and engineering occupations are dominating the state nomination priority lists. Fields like general management, accounting, and certain IT subcategories are becoming increasingly harder to secure state nomination for. So what should you do? Before you commit to any nominated occupation, sit down and do a full audit. Check your occupation against the MLTSSL if you are pursuing the 189 visa. Check each target state's occupation list if you are considering state nomination. Verify that your chosen assessing authority is accepting applications and that processing times work within your timeline. And if you are genuinely uncertain about which ANZSCO code best fits your actual work history, consult a registered migration agent before you make that decision, not after. We are getting to mistake number 4 now, and I have saved this one for last because in some ways it is the most preventable mistake of all, and yet it continues to destroy applications every single day. In fact, some immigration lawyers call it the mistake that most often turns a temporary setback into a permanent ban. Mistake number 4 is misrepresentation, providing false, misleading, or unverifiable information in your application. Now, when most people hear the word misrepresentation, they immediately think of big, obvious fraud. Fake degrees, fabricated employment records, counterfeit police certificates. And yes, those things happen, and they result in some of the harshest consequences in the entire immigration system. Providing fraudulent documents or deliberately misleading the Department of Home Affairs can result in a ban of up to 10 years from applying for any Australian visa whatsoever. Not just a PR refusal, a complete ban from the entire Australian immigration system for a decade. But the type of misrepresentation I want to talk about today is far more subtle, and it is far more common. Because thousands of applicants engage in what I call soft misrepresentation without even fully realizing they are doing it. And the consequences are just as serious. Let me explain what I mean. Soft misrepresentation happens when applicants exaggerate their work experience, claiming 5 years of relevant experience when 3 of those years were in a different role that does not fully match their nominated occupation. It happens when applicants claim to have worked in a regional area of Australia to qualify for regional visa concessions when they were actually living in a metropolitan city. It happens when applicants list a partner as meeting the skilled partner criteria without ensuring the partner's skills assessment was conducted under the correct occupation and by the correct authority. And it happens, perhaps most commonly, when applicants list qualifications that have been inadequately assessed or whose overseas equivalency has been assumed rather than verified. Here is the hard truth. The Department of Home Affairs does not simply accept what you tell them. Case officers are trained to cross-reference your claims against the supporting documents you submit, against your previous visa history, against information from your employer that may have been independently verified, and in some cases against information sourced from overseas authorities. Australia has bilateral agreements with many countries that allow the exchange of immigration and criminal record information. If there is a discrepancy between what you said in your application and what the authorities find during verification, you will not get the benefit of the doubt. You will get a refusal and potentially a finding of misrepresentation on your record. I want to share something that a migration lawyer shared publicly in early 2026 that I think every applicant needs to hear. She said, and I am paraphrasing here, that the Australian immigration system is fundamentally documentary. Decision makers are trained to rely on evidence, not explanations. What matters is not how much work you did, or how competent you are, or how desperately you want to live in Australia. What matters is what your documents say, and whether those documents are consistent, verifiable, and sufficient. That is the mindset you need when you are putting together your application. Stop thinking about what is true in your mind and start thinking about what you can actually prove on paper. Because in Australian immigration, if you cannot prove it, it does not exist. Now, one specific area where misrepresentation concerns have increased sharply in 2026 is around English language test validity. Your IELTS, PTE, or TOEFL results are only valid for a specific period, typically 3 years from the date you sat the test. If your results have expired by the time a decision is made on your application, or even by the time an invitation is issued, your application can be invalidated. And some applicants have been caught attempting to use expired test scores by backdating their lodgement timelines. This is treated as misrepresentation and is taken extremely seriously. Similarly, there has been a significant increase in scrutiny around claimed professional year programs and Australian study bonus points. The Department of Home Affairs is actively auditing applications where bonus points were claimed for Australian study and checking whether the educational institution, the duration of study, and the field of study genuinely qualify under the current rules. If you claimed 5 bonus points for Australian study and that claim cannot be substantiated, those points will be removed from your score. And if removing them puts you below the invitation cutoff, your application may lapse or be refused. So let us bring everything together, because I want to make sure you leave this video with a clear, practical roadmap. Mistake number 1 was documentation errors and inconsistencies. The fix is to audit every single document in your application for consistency, ensure your employment letters meet immigration standards, and verify the validity dates of your medical and character documents. Mistake number 2 was miscalculating your points or underestimating the competition. The fix is to stop relying on the 65-point minimum as your benchmark. Look at actual invitation round data to understand what scores are genuinely being invited in your occupation. Explore strategies to increase your score, better English results, state nomination, partner points, Australian work experience. And seriously consider regional pathways if you are in a competitive occupation. Mistake number 3 was choosing the wrong occupation or the wrong visa pathway. The fix is to do a thorough occupation audit before you commit to any YNZ SCO code. Cross-check your occupation against all relevant lists, the MLTSSL, the state occupation lists, and your assessing authority's requirements. Verify that your actual day-to-day duties match the ANZ SCO definition of your nominated occupation. And if you are in any doubt, speak to a registered migration agent before you lodge. Mistake number 4 was misrepresentation, both deliberate and accidental. The fix is to build your application entirely around what you can document and prove. Do not overclaim work experience. Do not assume your partner's skills assessment is valid if it was done years ago. Check the expiry dates on all test scores and certifications. And be aware that the system is actively cross-checking your claims. In 2026, with AI-assisted triaging now in place, inconsistencies are being caught faster than ever before. Now I want to address something that I know is on a lot of your minds. Many of you are probably thinking, this all sounds very complicated. Maybe I should just hire a migration agent and let them handle everything. And look, a good registered migration agent can absolutely add value, particularly if your situation involves complexity around your work history, your occupation choice, or your points calculation. But I want to caution you against something. A migration agent is only as good as the information you give them. If you provide your agent with inaccurate employment letters, or fail to disclose a previous visa rejection, or give them incomplete information about your partner's qualifications, no amount of professional expertise is going to save your application. The agent submits what you give them, and if what you give them is wrong, the refusal letter will still come addressed to you. The most successful applicants are the ones who take personal ownership of their applications. They understand the system. They verify their own documents. They monitor invitation rounds. They stay updated on policy changes. They do not simply hand everything over and hope for the best, because in a system this competitive, hope is not a strategy. Let me also say something about timing, because this is critically important in 2026. The Australian government has been under enormous political pressure over migration levels. Net overseas migration hit a record of over 500,000 people in the 2022 to 23 financial year, and since then, the public and parliamentary debate around migration has been intense. The government has been making moves to tighten the system, make it more targeted, more economically focused, and less accessible to general applicants who are not aligned with genuine workforce needs. This means that the window you have right now, under the current points test, with the current occupation lists, with the current invitation thresholds, may not be available to you for very much longer. The proposed reforms to the points test, if implemented from July 2026, could fundamentally change who gets invited and who does not. Older applicants, applicants with only competent English, applicants relying on Australian study bonus points. All of these profiles could become significantly less competitive under a reformed system. If you are eligible and competitive under the current rules, the single most important thing you can do right now is to lodge your expression of interest without delay. Not next month, not after your next IELTS sitting. Now, if you currently meet the 65-point floor, getting into the skill select pool immediately means you are on record under the current framework. Waiting could mean waking up in July 2026 to find that the framework has changed and your score no longer qualifies. I also want to quickly mention something that does not get talked about enough, which is what happens after a rejection. Because if you have already received a refusal, your situation is not necessarily hopeless, but it does require you to act quickly and carefully. When you receive a refusal from the Department of Home Affairs, you will receive a written decision explaining the reasons for the refusal. Read that document carefully, every word of it, because it is not just an explanation, it is a roadmap for what went wrong and what you need to fix. In many cases, applicants who have been refused have the right to seek a merits review at the Administrative Review Tribunal, which replaced the Administrative Appeals Tribunal in 2024. But the deadline to apply for a review is strict and non-negotiable. If you miss the deadline, that avenue is permanently closed to you, regardless of the merits of your case. So if you have received a refusal, consult a registered migration lawyer immediately. Not in a week, not after you have researched it yourself, as soon as you receive that decision. And if your refusal was due to a misrepresentation finding, even a minor one, be aware that reapplying immediately without addressing the underlying issue can make your situation significantly worse. A second application with the same problems on record is likely to be refused even faster than the first one, and the cumulative record of multiple refusals can make even legitimate future applications harder to progress. All right, let us wrap this up, because I know we have covered a lot of ground today, and I want to make sure you leave with the most important takeaways clearly in mind. Australia is a country with extraordinary opportunity. The quality of life is world-class. The economy is strong. The healthcare system is among the best on the planet. And for skilled professionals who meet the requirements, it genuinely offers one of the most rewarding migration pathways in the world. But the system is not forgiving. It is competitive, it is procedural, and it is changing fast. The 4 mistakes we talked about today, documentation errors, points miscalculation, wrong occupation selection, and misrepresentation, are not exotic, unusual problems. They are happening right now to real people in applications that are being submitted this week. Some of those people spent years dreaming of a life in Australia. Some of them spent their life savings on the application process, and they are being rejected for mistakes that, if they had known about them earlier, they absolutely could have avoided. That is exactly why this channel exists. We are here to make sure you are never one of those people. To make sure that when you walk through the Australian immigration process, you walk through it with your eyes open, with the right information, and with the best possible chance of success. So please, if this video helped you today, do 3 things right now. Hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps us reach more people who need this information. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. And share this video with someone you know who is currently planning or preparing an Australian PR application. Because the information in this video might literally save their application from rejection. And drop a comment below. Tell me, which of these 4 mistakes surprised you the most? Are you currently in the skill select pool? Have you already received an invitation? Or are you still waiting? I read every comment and I want to hear from you. Your questions and your experiences help us create better content, and they help other people in the community who are facing the same challenges as you. We will be back very soon with more updates, more strategies, and more of the real information you need to navigate Australian immigration in 2026. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and keep moving forward.